So I just wanted to kind of briefly go over again. This is not, the episode is not on communication per se. I will be having more, I will elaborate further in additional episodes in the future on other modes of communication. Right now, we are specifically focusing, of course, on ham radios, and we are waiting for our guest. But as we do so, I do want to give us some recommendation in terms of communication, or ways to communicate in disasters. So one of those ways or means is right now, like in 2020, that would be your social media. And I don't know how many of you have really kind of noticed in some of the hurricanes that we've had, or some of the other kind of disaster situations that we've had, that Twitter gets live and Facebook gets very live, because that is now the kind of mode of communication. It's universal and you can reach people throughout. And it's been very helpful just worldwide of letting people be aware of what's going on in other countries even. You know, in Paris, there were riots and et cetera. And we were able to kind of view that when we had riots and what have you in DC, the political riots that went on. I was able to view, and I don't know if many of you, I could get on Twitter, and Twitter is the best at this. You could get on Twitter and you can view live like what is happening on the streets, because everybody becomes, you know, an instant journalist of sorts, a newscaster. I see now that our guest has arrived, and I'm going to now let him in. And I'll go in furtherance of this topic just to kind of let you know what other modes of communication there are. Ultimately, I'll do that after the interview. And one moment, I'm going to break from my conversation. I see that Paul Muhammad has joined us. Can you hear us? I don't know that he can hear me. If you can hear me, you would need to unmute your, can you hear me? If you can hear me, you might have to unmute. And also, if you can, turn on your video. I'm sorry, 1 second, just for some technical, I have my assistant here, she's asking me questions. So I'm not talking, I'm not shaking my head at myself. Can you hear me? Okay. There you go. I think I hear you coming in, sir. Or not. Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry. I was hoping to do this earlier. Can you hear me? Okay. While he gets adjusted, and if you can hear me, Paul, if you can hear me in any way, while he gets adjusted, I'm going to kind of continue on my dialogue. I'm going to try to continue in my dialogue as our guest gets adjusted. At any point, I can see that you're in the room, but at any point, just kind of join in the conversation to let me know if you are able to put your video live or if you're able to converse. And any of you, I do Okay, I see you now on your video.
How
Can
you
you see
doing,
me?
son?
I'm
Peace.
well.
Peace.
Peace.
I'm
How are
Alaikum.
you? Well, salam. How
Good,
are you?
good.
And any
I'm
other,
well.
I'm glad. Thank you for joining us. If any others who are in the room, if you could kindly mute your mics, I would greatly appreciate it. I just don't want any interference or interfering noise as we now have our guests. Thank you very much for joining us here at Ready or Not Prepares for our Zoom, our live Zoom and podcast broadcast. And you,
Okay.
sir, if you could introduce yourself. I am Michele, the host of Ready or Not Prepares. And if you would kindly introduce yourself to our guests and our Ready or Not Prepares family.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, sister. I appreciate you all for having me on, Sister Corinne, and you too, Sister Michele. Um, my name is Paul Muhammad. I am a ham radio operator. I do a bunch of different things. I'm an engineer by degree and by trade. I've been on the battlefield for a very long time, and it dawned on me in Ferguson that the importance of emergency communications and having a plan for your family. So I'm one of those people who is tapped into my creativity, tapped into my problem solving mindset, and I'm here to give it back to the people.
Great, great, great. And you are ham radio. I've advertised you and spoken of you as a ham radio expert. Um,
Well,
can you give us some background on that? Thank you. I'm sorry. My
I,
assistant here.
I won't say expert, but I guess for those who don't know it at all, I would be an expert.
Correct.
But
Correct.
I, I'm I'm
Perspective.
I'm learning to be an expert. I would
And how
say
long
that.
have you been, I guess, what, an amateur radio operator? Is that the
For
way to say it?
Yeah, amateur or ham radio.
Hmm.
It's affectionately called ham radio because those who are interfering with the radio waves, they consider them going ham. This person is going ham, so they adopted that as a name to refer to amateur radio. I've had my FCC license for approximately about 7 years, approximately somewhere around there.
Okay.
However, I've been an engineer for a lot longer than that, so I've understood radio communications and electronics for a lot longer than that. So since then, I've been pushing for those of us to get involved. When Ferguson happened, that's what kind of brought my mindset back to ham radio, along with a sister who was an international emergency manager. So I asked myself, what are we going to do if the grid goes down and we can't communicate and all modes of form of communication fail? What will we do? And then ham radio came to the rescue, came to my mind. So I said, wow. So I started looking into it and pushing an initiative for 10,000 ham operators across the country. And now more and more people are starting to get on board.
So that was your goal. Your goal was to have 10,000 in your network.
And just 10,000 of those who were not ham radio operators to get on board and understand the significance of this tool called
Okay.
ham radio.
So I think once I started with the ham radios, as many of you may know, and if you don't know, I have been in talks, and my partner Corinne as well, with distributors of ham radios, and people now knowing that the first question they had, and this is the first question I'll ask you generally about ham radios, is what is the difference between CB radios, walkie talkies, and the ham radio?
Well, they all are forms of walkie talkies.
Mm,
All right. Is the distinction between them is that different radios allow you access to different frequencies.
right.
Ham radio happens to be the one that is more diverse and has a wider range of frequencies that you're allowed to function on. So that's the
Mhm.
biggest distinction. And with the frequencies themselves, there's distinctions. So
Okay.
some frequencies only allow you to operate from one radio to the next. And
Right.
then some
That's
radio,
walkie-talkie more so.
walkie-talkie, ham radio, and CB, those all allow you to operate from one radio to the next. It's like a CB operator, which is called Citizens Band. It stands for Citizens Band.
Mhm.
Those they have their own frequency and they're operating radio from one citizens band to the next citizens. I mean, from one radio to the next radio. However, and they have different ranges within those parameters. Ham radio not only allows you radio to radio, but when you get into the higher frequencies of ham radio, it allows you worldwide communication by bouncing signals off the ionosphere, off the atmosphere. So just based on the nature of frequency, of different bands of frequency, there's different capabilities that come along with that.
So what would you say reigns superb? Like, what would you recommend
Ham
and suggest of
ham
those
radio,
ham
ham
radio?
radio, ham
And why?
radio, hands down, because of the flexibility and the wide range of frequencies that it allows. So a CB, you cannot bounce a signal off the ionosphere with a CB. You're limited. Even though a CB is not bad, because that may be what you have and that may be what your network has, like truck drivers. So everything has purpose. So it's
Mhm.
all about purpose. It's all purpose driven. So if your purpose is for your truck drivers on the road to be able to communicate back and forth and have chatter, then CB might be an option, right? Because they have a pretty good range as well. However, with the ham radio, you can talk to someone in the UK. You can talk to someone in China. You can talk to someone in Russia if you have the right radio. So you got what's called VHF, UHF. You got very high frequency, ultra high frequency, and HF, which is high frequency. So when you get into your HF bands, and each of those three, like if you remember on the back of your old television, it was UHF, VHF. Remember that? So
Correct. Yeah.
those are a signal. There's a bands of frequency.
Mhm.
So when you get into the HF, which is high frequency, you're talking about bouncing signals off the ionosphere. When you get into your like UHF and VHF, you're talking about kind of like radio to radio. But also, there's another caveat for ham radio. You have what's called repeaters. A repeater is just merely a tower, much like a cell phone tower, that repeats your signal for a longer distance. It receives your signal, and they're usually up in the air, so they're allow you to overcome obstacles by being so high up. So your signal high up, and then it's signal sending your signal further, so it's repeating it and transferring it further than what you normally would get with just your radio to radio communication. So that's another caveat for ham radio. So you are able to use the repeaters, which in every major cities across the country, there are repeaters all over the place. You
Oh,
could even
really?
set, oh yeah, yeah. There's books. If I may, there are books. Here's a handheld book, a repeater directory.
Mm.
In this repeater directory, there's every state is in this. So all the main repeaters in every state is in this book.
So
Uh,
are you saying, like, as I just kind of travel along, I don't know how to identify any, but is it like an average? Is something common in the landscape? You could just, it's
it's, it's
repeated
yeah,
around you.
it's very common. What city are you in?
I'm in Greenbelt, Maryland.
Okay, so let's do this. We're gonna go to Maryland. So in Maryland alone, it's so many I can't even count them.
Wow.
So you got from Baltimore to Charleston. There's repeaters all over the place. Call
Now,
it.
is that important to know, especially for us novice ham radio operators?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely,
so is that
absolutely.
significant to know? Do we need to have that information to kind of know?
Absolutely. If you have a ham radio or looking to get into ham radio, yeah, it's very significant to know. And there's an app that you can download to your phone called Repeater Book app. So if you download the Repeater Book app, it'll, if you're sitting right here, I go into my Repeater Book app, it's going to tell me the distance of these repeaters.
Good information.
So it's going to say, are you 5 miles? You're 5 miles from this repeater. You're 20 miles from this repeater. And
Mm,
so I can log those coordinates into my radio and test distance. Test, okay, if I can hit this one at, I can hit a repeater from right here in my office at about 7 miles away.
hmm
That's in my office from inside of this building, at my house, 7 miles away. So I might test to see if I can hit that repeater. Yeah, I can hit it. And then I
Now, when
might,
you say, I'm sorry to interrupt, when you say, because I know this is lingo now, when
I
you say you can hit a repeater,
can hit it.
what does that do? That means communicate,
I can
bounce
connect.
off of,
I can connect to it
connect. hmm
and communicate with anybody else who's connected to it. So if I'm hitting it, if I'm connecting to it at 7 miles, 5 to 7 miles, then someone else who has maybe stronger equipment, they might be another 20 miles from
Okay.
it. So now we got 27-mile communication using
Wow. Okay.
using the repeater. And it's
Okay. So
direct, it's
how do you
direct.
get universal? Like you said, you could do worldwide communication. How does that bear
Well,
into
you
play
need
with?
different equipment. There's
Ah,
variables involved. Your
okay.
antenna, the type of antenna you have, and the amount of power you're pushing to push the antenna is what's gonna. It's variables that allow you to connect easily or not connect at all. So a lot of your ham radios come with what we call a rubber ducky antenna. So
I
you
heard
got a
that.
little basic antenna that come with it, and I could still connect to a repeater at about 5 miles. But if I want a longer range, I might want to get a better antenna for this.
And so what you just held up, if you can let everybody see, and you're saying that antenna there is the rubber ducky
This is the rubber ducky that comes with this
that comes
particular
with it.
radio.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so most radios is going to come with its own little rubber ducky. Uh, Here's
Okay.
another one. It's got a different one. Um, so, and then if you give me one moment, I'll grab my tactical antenna that's a little longer. So here's an antenna that folds up. So you can open this thing up, and then so now I got a more powerful antenna with this one.
Wow.
You see, and it just folds up. I think it costs about around $20 for this antenna. So the equipment you're using also plays a role in your ability to connect to a repeater or not connect to a repeater, or radio to radio is going to enhance your capability, along with buildings that's being in the way. So the repeater helps you avoid the buildings.
Okay.
Now when you want to get into worldwide communication, you're going to need different equipment. These are not going to allow you to do worldwide unless the repeater you're connecting to has certain capabilities. Some repeaters are linked to other repeaters that are way somewhere else, maybe 100 miles from that repeater,
Mm,
or it may be linked to app. There's a app called Echo Link. However, the downside to something like Echo Link is if the internet is not working, you may not be able to use that technology. So really,
mm,
it's about knowledge of the terrain. And what I mean in terrain in this context is equipment, knowledge of your equipment and understanding the capabilities thereof. But when you get into your higher frequencies, you're going to need different equipment, which this here is this gets on all bands. So I can get on UHF, VHF, and HF. So this is a higher frequency radio. I can communicate across the world with this radio. And it comes with a big power supply. It come and then okay. It comes with a big power supply, and also I had to get a different antenna. I got a very big antenna for this one, but it folds up. And this is an ICOM 7100. An antenna that goes with this is called a buddy pole that I purchased. There are different antennas, but you got to get an antenna that allows you on those bands. So you got to know your equipment. Know that this antenna allows me UHF, VHF, and HF. So therefore, I can use it with this radio.
okay.
That this radio costs about $900. So we're gonna start here. We're gonna start here, but we want to be here.
Mm,
You
okay.
see?
I have a very practical scenario to ask you about. And again, just I'm noticing that um, I just got an extension from Zoom.
Yeah, I
So,
saw
but I
that.
want to kind of, I guess we're gonna have to kind of speed forward. And I do want to at some point open up because this is kind of technical. So if anyone has any questions, as a matter of fact, if you want to go ahead and start writing questions now, I can try to read them off as I come to them. We can do that, or and at a point, I'll just open the mics up and you can ask questions directly. But very quickly, a very practical scenario
Okay.
is my son lives probably about 30-35 miles from me, and his family, they're getting ham radios as well. So if I have just that, I think you said that startup ham, and I do or will have it soon. What do we need to go about in order to kind of effectively communicate with each other in a situation, in an emergency or disaster situation?
Well, okay. Good question. Excellent question. What you want to do first, you want to not have knowledge of your terrain. This is part of guerrilla warfare. That's one of the principles of guerrilla warfare is knowledge of the terrain. And
Okay.
again, in this context, this terrain includes knowing where your repeaters are. If you're that far, unless you had an antenna on your house that went way up high, right? Which you probably don't.
Do not.
So if you're working with your, so you just got your rubber ducky, you got your basic radio. So now your mindset needs to be about repeaters, finding out where the repeaters are,
Okay.
and they're directional repeaters. So when you download the app to your phone, it's going to tell you if this repeater is southwest, south, or north of you. So knowing his terrain, where he is, he's south of you, right? So he's going to look for the repeater north of him, and you're looking for the repeater south of you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they usually have call signs. The repeaters have call signs. So you might say, well, W0BF, whatever. If that's the call sign, that's the repeater. You're going to develop a communications plan that says if something happens, these are the repeaters that we're going to communicate on. And Sister Corinne is familiar. We talked about what's called a calling clock. A calling clock, it's like the 333 method and the calling clock. What that means is starting from the 12 o'clock hour, every three min or every 3 hours, you're gonna turn your radio on for 3 minutes on channel three. Now, channel three might be that repeater. So every 3 hours, I'm turning my radio on for 3 minutes on channel three, the 333. So 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock again. So around the clock, that's your calling clock. So if disaster strikes, your son knows what your channel three is. This your plan A. Your plan B might be a different repeater. Your plan C might be another repeater. Plan D, another repeater. But at least he knows that in this conserving battery, you've conserving the battery life. So he knows that at 3 o'clock, I can reach mama. I'm gonna turn this on for 3 minutes. I'm gonna call out to your whatever your tag or call sign is. I'm calling out. If anybody else is on the air, he's letting them know that he's trying to reach you. That if they're on and he's not on at any time to pass that traffic on to you, that he's okay,
Okay.
and where this location is. If he might have to move around or something like that. So utilizing creating a family emergency communication plan is essential, even in regards to the repeaters. So
Okay.
you know.
I definitely want to go more in depth than that because I know I do have someone in the room, and her family is in Arizona, Arizona. And I would wonder, what the setups would be. And I have to say, it looks like we're gonna have to do a part two, but I'm gonna move along on some of the technical.
Okay.
And just
Okay.
wanted to ask you very quickly about licensing.
Okay.
Do know that there are 3 licensed that are needed. I think the technician license is the first, but if you could kind of expound on that.
Yes, absolutely. So the technician class license is your first license that you want to get. Now, some of you who are really gun ho, you can jump straight to general or straight to extra. You can't. You can only transmit if you have a license, unless you're transmitting an emergency per FCC rules.
Let me get that in again. Could you repeat that? You can only transmit.
If you have a license,
Correct.
or if you're actually transmitting a real emergency, you're in a situation and you need to get some help.
Okay, so in layman's talk, and my understanding was you cannot operate a ham radio without a license.
You can listen without a license
You
on it.
can
So you
listen.
can buy it, listen on it, put in the frequencies, listen all day long, but you can't transmit without the license unless you're
Okay.
transmitting in a real emergency,
Okay. Got it. Got it.
right? And
Okay.
so the first level license is the technician class license, which this book particular is one of my favorite book, because Gordon West is the author. So you can look it up, Gordon West technician class book. Excellent book, because he not only gives you the answers to the questions, he gives you the answers to all the real questions that's on the test, but he gives you commentary as to why it is the right answer. Okay, so this is the technician class book. And then I have here also, which is I'm working on my general class. Now, in order to do the worldwide communication, you got to have a general class. So I'm working on this now. I have this already, but I'm working on this. I've been procrastinating a little bit because I got my hand in a lot of other stuff, but this is what I'm working on right now is my general class. And I'm going to have to go ahead and get it just because the demand is getting greater and greater for it. But if you're in the present, here's another thing. If you're in the presence of a operator who has a license and you're there, they can allow you to transmit while they're present. And you have
Question.
to, yeah, you have to use their call sign while you're transmitting, because they're responsible for if you say something crazy or whatever.
So, I mean, who would know? I mean, I know ham radios are regulated, though. Are they federally regulated under
Yeah, it's regulated by the Federal Communications Commission,
FCC?
or the FCC.
Mm-hmm.
However, they're not listening to everybody's conversation all day, every day. It's more the other ham operators who respect the craft, who
Right.
looks at this as a hobby. It's a disaster tool disguised as a hobby.
Right.
So what happens is you get on the air, unless you're using a fake call sign, unless you both using fake call signs to test out something. They're gonna say, if I go on the air and my call sign is K0WFM, that's Kilo Zero Whiskey Foxtrot Mike. So if I get on the air and say this is Kilo Zero Whiskey Foxtrot Mike, monitoring on my mobile device, then somebody else is gonna come on and say, oh, this is KE0XEXX. How you doing, K0WFM? Hey, I'm having a great time, man. I'm just on the air trying to see if somebody's out there on the airwave to talk to tonight. So that's how they're gonna communicate with you. They're not gonna communicate with you with suspicion or anything.
Right.
They're gonna want to engage you,
Yeah.
you know, just because they love the craft.
Right. Right. But ethically so, you should get your license.
Oh yeah. And there's audio books as well. I have the general class audio book. That's a great companion to the book, the study book, and then I have the technician class audio book. So you have both.
So we have technician, general, and then the third is
Extra. It's called the extra class.
extra. Okay.
I
And
haven't.
what's the difference in why is my goal to get to extra if that's a goal?
Extra just allows you everything, any and everything that you are not allowed on those other two.
Okay,
Uh,
so let's recap. The, let's recap. The technician allows you
you
limited.
got certain UHF, VHF bands that you can get on with your technician class. And then with your general class, you got UHF, VHF, and HF.
Mm,
Right now, there are a few HF bands that you can get on the technician class, but then when you get to the general, it's like everything. You're still limited on both a little bit, but you still got enough to do what we trying to do, with survival and stuff. You still, there's enough in there. But when you get into extra, everything is available to you.
wow.
you know.
Quick question, and I'm going to open up the lines. So it's my understanding that, ham radio has been around for a while. Let me just share this because I came across it. Let me see if I can share this, and I don't think I can. One second. I had it. I had it up once, but it's not coming up. Okay, I wanted to share something. I can't find it on here now. Okay, one second. One second. Okay. Um. At any rate, I can't share it now. Okay, you can't do it. It's okay. It should have been up. But anyway, I know that it has been around for a long time. I was going to show a clip, and I probably would do so in the edited version of this. It was a clip of Herman the Monster. That's like for your younger ones.
They
In
don't
the
know about
day
that.
1964, and Herman is on ham radio. So it's been around for some time. But that being the case, I guess communication, not I guess. I know communication has evolved. But there was some talk of banning ham radio. It's not. I know California has some strict laws against that. What is that all about?
Um, I would say if they want to, I don't think they'll be able to do it only because frequency is frequency. Even if they shut the repeaters down, that still doesn't take away from our ability to communicate radio to radio. It's just all people would do was get more innovative with setting up antennas at their house and hiding the antennas. You know what I mean?
Do
Like
you
I
know what's
have,
behind that theory? Like why would they want to
well,
ban?
anytime something is good that's gonna help people survive, as the Christians say, the devil don't want us to survive. So
Mm,
anything to control you and help keep you controlled, because one of the things when people are at war or when countries at war, one of the first things they do is knock out the communications.
absolutely.
So when someone wants to subdue you, they want to take all forms of your ability to communicate.
Okay. I am going to thank you for that. I'm going to try to open up or no, I mean you have the ability. If anyone has any questions, please just unmute. You can unmute your mic now, and you can also send a chat if you have any questions. I know this is very technical. We're getting these hams, and if you have any questions, if not, okay, I don't see any open mics, and I'm giving you 2 more seconds.
They bashful.
They're being shy. They're being shy.
No. The only wrong question is the one you don't ask, y'all.
Correct.
Uh, come
So,
on, come on with it.
no questions. Okay,
Hey,
so
how
you,
y'all doing?
How you doing, brother? Brother Jay?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes, sir.
Okay, I'm on the move right now. I do have a couple questions, but I'll have to do that in a couple minutes when I get home.
Okay.
okay. Oh,
So I
okay.
apologize.
Well, I'm going to get some information on how to contact Brother Paul Muhammad, and you can definitely contact myself or my partner at readyornotprepares@gmail.com. Be sure to visit our website, www.readyornotprepares. Yeah.
Alaikum.
Like salam.
This is Sister Barbara from Baltimore. I have a question in reference to the class that we're going to be taking, the
Baltimore.
5-week class. Is that the license class that we're going to be taking?
Um, well, this is a class to help prepare you for that, to give you education on how to use the radio, a little more in
Mhm.
depth on the repeaters. We'll show you how to connect to the repeater. We'll demonstrate how to connect to the repeater, and also go over some of the test questions together to help get you prepared for the test to get your license. And
So how
then,
much does the license cost?
well, the license itself, the test is $15, and you would take that locally in your local city. You would just look up when, and I think if you go to ARRL, the Amateur Radio Relay League, Amateur Radio Relay League, there is remote testing being done because of COVID. If you go there, you can look into if there's any remote testing done in your area for that. The test itself is $15, and there's 35 questions on the test. There's only 35 questions on the test. The distinction is they take the 35 out of a pool of approximately 380 or something, 400. Let's just say 400, somewhere around there. But it's not the most difficult questions that they take out of that pool. But it's only 35 on it. And even if you failed it, you can take it again the same day if you had another $15 in your pocket. Because that's what happened to me. I took it, I failed it, I missed it
Ew.
by a few questions. And I was like, I don't want to leave here without. And the guy, I don't want to leave here without my license. I was feeling kind of bad. And so the guy was like, you want to take it again? I was like, yeah. And he was like, you got another $15? Gave it to him, passed it, only missed four. So
Excellent.
So how many are
Awesome.
you allowed to miss?
I have to get the actual facts on it. I don't want to misquote it, but no, I don't want to misquote it. But I only missed four. Put it like this: I only missed four that time, and I got my license. And
Okay.
you get a call sign, and you'll see your name show up in the FCC database, and your along with your call sign. If you don't like your call sign, you can get what's called a vanity call sign. I think my first call sign was K0EXX. I wanted something that flowed more off my tongue when I said it. So when I'm talking, so I got it changed to K0WFM. So I could say that pretty fast. K0WFM, monitor mobile, you know, and then phonetically it's kilo zero whiskey foxtrot Mike, so I wanted something that I could flow with, because saying kilos, what it was, it K0EXX, it was like, oh, I don't want to say all that.
Thank
So
All
you.
right,
Like,
so let me just share with everyone that for the class that starts on January the 9th, it will come with that technician book. You will get a PDF version of that book as well as
yeah,
mock quizzes that's going to come with the class as well.
yes, absolutely.
a quick question
So,
on the
and then what
licensing.
I will actually do, Brother Paul, if you could give me that website to go to, I'll pull up a list of classes in different cities and send that out as well.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat box.
Yes, sir.
A quick question just about the licensings. Do you have to renew them? How often do you have to renew those licenses?
If my memory serves me correct, it's every 10 years, something like that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you get some good time on that.
Okay. Okay. And I guess my last question, just in general, is how do you think, or what do you think is the significance of having ham radio in disasters, like in preparedness?
Well, it's an inexpensive tool that has a long a nice amount of battery life on it, and it only costs around 25 to 30 some bucks just for a basic one. And it does a lot more. It's worth a lot more than what it costs, you
Right.
know. So I
Right.
think that the significance of it is it gives you that capability to stay in communication with your family, your loved ones, and even help someone that you may not know in a disaster. I was working at the airport in Atlanta as an engineer, and it was a blackout one time. And when I left, I got on my radio, and there was a guy that was stranded looking for help. He was stuck because there were blackouts everywhere. But just him being able to be on the air on his ham radio to let someone know, because there was no other way to him to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And if you Google ham radio, when ham radio comes to the rescue, ham radio and Katrina, ham radio has come to the rescue in every major disaster in the country.
Wow.
Mhm. Mhm.
Message. Here's a message too. Do not think, as we did not even speculate or conceive of a pandemic on the scale of what we're experiencing now. Do
That's
not
right.
think that the grids won't go down. When you just said the word blackout, blackouts have occurred in probably the last, what, within this year. California has suffered blackouts. New York has suffered blackouts. And it hasn't been for an extended amount of time, but they do exist. And we do know that disasters are happening now at a more increased frequency. So don't, nod your head at the possibility and think it's some far away kind of, preppers kind of thing.
Here's
It
another.
is very real.
If you allow me to add on to that, what you just said, in disaster preparedness, it was always said that you should always not expect any help for 72 hours, right? So you
Correct.
should prepare.
At least.
Well, with Puerto Rico, what happened in Puerto Rico has taught us that it's a lot longer than that,
Correct.
because they're still recovering.
This is
out
real
there.
life. Exactly.
And they still, some of them without power or whatever. So you need to prepare as if the power ain't even coming back on.
Right.
So
And
you need,
have a ham radio.
yeah, and backup battery, solar panels, so if nothing comes back on the grid, you got to power these things back up, thinking 12 volts. If you're going to get solar panels, thinking getting 12-volt items, 12-volt crock pot, 12-volt refrigerator, 12-volt oven, 12-volt
Right.
lights, 12-volt everything, you
Correct.
know, and research some of that. We're gonna, when we do the ham radio training, we're gonna get in some of that too. How to set up a battery backup system with a solar panel and what that looks like and all of that.
Okay. So again, I want to thank you for taking the time out to give us this valuable information. As my partner just stated, you do have a course coming up in January.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any contact information that you can provide us? Do you have social media? Where can
Yes.
anyone reach you to get more information on the class, etc.?
I'm gonna put my email in the chat box. I'm gonna put my phone number as well. Uh, if you have any questions about the class, though, I would direct you to Sister Michele or Sister Corinne in that regard, because they are organizing it. Uh, so if you got questions regarding the registration or anything like that, I would prefer you give those questions to Sister Michele and Sister Corinne.
And let me say, while you're doing that, again, be sure to stop by ReadyOrNotPrepares.com. We have a distribution deal with ham radio suppliers, and just let us know when you want them. And I think I see my partner over there holding up hers because a shipment came in, or what it came in.
Uh-oh. Go
We're
ahead.
getting ready this week to put out another order, so that will be taking place again this week. I wanted to ask you very quickly. So we have the biofilm, the UV5R biofilm. Is that just kind of standard? Because I've noticed America is not making a lot of ham radios. It's coming from China.
Most of them are Chinese radios. I don't know if Motorola. Let's see, Motorola. Yeah, most of them are Chinese radios. Um, but the Baofeng has man, it stood the test of time. So it's one of the most reliable ones on a basic debate when you deal with basic radios. And then I have another one that is one of my personal favorites. I'm gonna show you. It's called a Wouxun. It's spelled WOUXUN. It's called a Wouxun. This was actually my first radio, but these run about 80 to $100.
Okay.
And here's a something you need to know
Okay.
about this radio. It is the KGUV8D. I'll put it in a chat box. This radio can be used as a repeater, itself.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Interesting. I'm just gonna, while you're doing that, again, looks like he's given us information on ARRL, and from my understanding, ARRL is an association of ham radio, uh, amateur radio operators. It's like a network of sorts. Um, and a good question. I did have a question. Is, do you recommend that we join that once we become operators?
Yeah, you can join it before you. I don't think you have to be an operator to join it, but you can join it at any time because there's a lot of great information that they provide.
And a huge
A
network
lot of great,
behind
and you get discounts as a
it.
yeah, as a member of ARRL, you get discount. I was a member at one point. I just hadn't renewed it. I need to renew my membership, but you do get discounts on equipment and books and stuff like that as a
Excellent.
member.
And you've provided us your email, that's navigationofpeace@gmail.com, with the phone number 678-522-0053. The other information is the Wukan KGUV8D. We actually at Radio Not Prepares are providing or offering the Biofing UV5R. So be sure to stop by the website
Right,
and
exactly.
you know, you gave us information. Corinne and I will get on to a distributor quick. We'll be selling antennas, won't we? Antennas and, you know, anything else you say in terms of supplemental accessories and what have you.
Right.
So, and very quickly before I close out, I was just giving, while we were waiting for you to come in, I was giving alternative communication or ways to communicate in off-grid situations, social media being one. Apps, there are apps galore out now that, and of course this is if you're on grid. You have your apps, your cell phone. You just have to be conservative with how you use your cell phone. You have to make sure you have it charged. You can use solar chargers, etc. There are a lot of things that are now in place for disasters that are coming up. One other thing, back to like the Herman Monster days, is a landline. Just the old-fashioned telephone in the house connected to, you know, whomever. If you have a landline, I don't know realistically if somebody else that you're trying to communicate with will have a landline. So you would have to really kind of strategize on that. But again, these are just other ways to communicate or alternative ways. And of course, your radios, that CB, that ham radio, that walkie-talkie would always be helpful. Some people get information from police scanners, and also there's I don't know if you know about it, but there's what it's a satellite phones. I hear they're big in Africa and other countries. So if if the grid goes down, you can just ping off the satellite. I definitely want to look into those at some point to see how we can get our hands on those, in addition to the ham radios.
Yeah, when you're structuring your plan A, B, C, and D, your plan A might be the cell phone. Then your
Correct.
plan B may be a CB or a satellite phone. So you just gotta structure it and then make sure everybody in your network and it has a copy of your plan,
Right.
so
Excellent.
that they know. So even if you got somebody outside of your region who may be your hub, may be a part of your communications hub, but the crisis is going on in your region, so they got a copy of your plan, so they might want to come and try to rescue you, so they know that these are the ways you're going to be communicating at these times, and then they can effectively have a strategy to reach you.
Thank you for these pearls. Excellent information, valuable information. Again, be sure to stop by the website. And again, Brother Paul has left us information to kind of, you know, send questions his way if need be, and get in touch with myself. You can get in touch with Corinne as well through our email. Sorry, I'm trying to remember the email. Through our email, and that email is readyornotprepares gmail.com. Thank you for spending your evening with us. I hope this is valuable information. And again, thank you. Look forward to a part 2 because I know it gets more technical, especially after you give that class. Thank you very much, everyone. Peace.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Peace.
remember, we're not here to scare you. We're here to prepare you. Good night.
That's right.